Hello and welcome to Black Music Footprints, a jazz experience. My name is Mondre Moffett and I am your host. I am excited. I have in the building with me a special guest that I have been trying to get here for a long time, in fact. He is the beloved music man at St. Stephen Baptist Church here in Louisville, Kentucky. I'm going to have some exciting conversations with him about his journey. And I'd like for you to welcome to the studio. If I had a live studio audience, I'm sure everybody would be on their hands, clapping their hands and stumping their feet for the one and only Brother Kevin James. Welcome, Kevin.
Thank you so much. So good to be here with you, man.
Oh, man.
Yes.
Man, there's so much I want to talk to you about because, you know, when I came to St. Stephen about 2 years ago, it was just, your ministry here was just par excellent. You do this thing 52 weeks a year. Year in and year off. How long have you been and served as the minister of music at St. Stephen?
In December, the fourth Sunday in December will be my 35th year as the minister of music at St. Stephen Church.
Wow.
35
years.
Yes.
Now that is quite a story all to itself. I mean, you know.
Most definitely.
With the consistency of day in and day out, even during the pandemic,
Yeah.
the music ministry have been consistent. And your leadership, when you talk about leadership, I mean, in fact, I went to the dictionary, I went to the library, and I looked up leadership in the dictionary and had a picture of you right there.
You're too kind, you're too kind.
Because I remember once when I first got here, you called me. You said, Moffett, I want you to come to the church. I want you to meet somebody. I want you to introduce you to somebody. And it was March the 20th, 2019, maybe a week before the pandemic. And I didn't know it. So I got there and you introduced me to the great hymnologist, James Abberton.
Yes.
And, you know, I just really felt really special, and it was very visionary for you to do that to begin with. And I went and he asked me, you know, about my background. He said, where you come from? I said, I was served at a church in Oakland, California, Allen Temple. And he said, oh, you must know Betty Gatlin, the minister of music there. And I just felt, you know, family at that point.
Yes.
The late, great Betty Gatlin. And so in 35 years, I mean, what is the anatomy of putting a department together? I mean, what is your week like?
Oh, wow. Well, a week would be, first of all, meetings. We meet with our directors, and then we communicate what we have done with the directors with the band directors. And we also have another meeting with what we call our worship planning committee. All right, and putting all those things together, the songs, the scriptures, the prayer, whatever other elements of worship that may take place on that particular week. We talk and hash those things out every week. But even before those times come, I'm thinking, and Pastor Cosby always told me this, you know, Sunday comes every week. So once we get accolades about worship at 2:30 or 3 o'clock from Hardin County, it's back over again with me in my mind. What are we going to do next week? What are we going to do the week after? What are we going to do the week after? So I'm constantly thinking ahead, so when we get ready to have those meetings, we have something to share with our directors and with our musicians and with our worship planning team.
You seem to always have something up your sleeve. I mean, you know, you never know. You just know it's going to be excellent. But you always have something up your sleeve. And I've been kind of talking to different musicians about it. And I talked to one of the musicians on your staff, and he said, yeah, we learn about 13, 14 songs a week. I said, 13 or 14 songs a week. Yeah, I mean, you know, and the planning that goes into it.
Yeah.
And the musicians, you know, the great Duke Ellington, they called him Duke because he was always so gracious with giving people compliments. He was so good at it. And the other attribute that Duke had, outstanding band leader, was the fact that he enjoyed experiencing and other people's creativity and giving them the freedom to create And I notice you do the same thing, how you orchestrate your musicians and able to see their strong points.
Mondre, I got probably the best musicians in the nation.
No
Not
doubt.
probably. I know I do. These guys are so gifted, so talented. These guys are recording artists in their own right. Every last one of them. So, I get credit for a whole lot, but I'm surrounded by such greatness and such excellence. As a leader, I have to stay ahead of the game because these guys will call me out if I don't.
Yes, yes, yes. And I know you are great at what you do because that night that you introduced me to James Hamilton, he's usually an organist, I understand, but he's on piano, and I noticed you got on the organ to help him out.
Yeah.
And I had never seen you do something like that. You've always been in front, standing tall, and getting the congregation involved. But you got on the organ that night, and that was a historic event for me.
Well, for me, now, and when I first started, believe it or not, when I first started in December of 1986, I had on staff was a part-time, well, actually was an interim musician, and a keyboard person, and a drummer. And by the time I got to 1987, it was Kevin James. And so I had to actually direct the choir, play the organ, all at the same time. And you talking about a praying musician. I was praying and saying, Lord, please send me somebody. And God systematically just started sending individuals to us to help us build the ministry at St. Stephen Church. But initially, that's what I did. I played. These guys are so good now, I don't have to play anything. Matter of fact, I have to continue to stay home and play because I will lose my gift if I allow them to do it. So every now and then I like to get on the keyboard and play.
And so this was not a ministry that you walked into with a silver spoon and the ministry was already at the level where you had all of these gifted musicians.
No, now St. Stephen Church has always had great choirs. They've always had great music and had great musicians, but at the time that I came in, it was a transition time. Pastor Cosby had been pastoring maybe 7 years, and he really had begun to hone in his vision for St. Stephen Church. And sometimes when a pastor has a vision, sometimes everybody's not on board with that vision. All right, but he finally began to start, and I was the first one, a part of that team that he wanted to develop to help make that vision come to fruition. So I was the first full-time employee at St. Stephen Church. And so they had good music, they had good choirs, but when it came to the vision that Dr. Cosby had, that wasn't really set in place at the time.
So we're talking about the 80s. Tell me about where does this come from? What were some of your early influences? Where you're from? Your first instruments? Talk to me about that.
Ooh, well, my early influence, I originally come from Gary, Indiana. I was born and raised in the church. I joined church at the age of 8, but there was a musician, Brother Stokely, who played the organ at my church, and I would sit on the third row with my mom and just in awe watch this guy play the organ. Now, this is the other thing this is when I knew that the Lord could take a crooked stick and hit a straight lick. This guy, I might see him on Sunday night, he would come to church and he would be inebriated.
What
and
night?
He could hardly walk up the steps at church.
You said, what night was this?
On Sunday night. Say like in communion service or something like that. But he would get on that organ and still play that organ. And for some reason, he just had that gift. God had given him that gift. Yeah. But I was really enamored by this guy. And I never, ever really got a chance to talk with him or really converse with him. I would just see him and just watch him. Later on down the line, I began to play. I played several instruments in junior high school. We started with the recorder. I actually started with that in elementary school. Then in junior high school, I started playing the trumpet, baritone horn, French horn. So I was doing a lot of that. And then in high school, I started in the marching band. And I started playing keyboard, though, probably my 7th grade year. I started, and then started taking lessons, and things just started progressing from there. My first full-time job was at my piano teacher's church. He hired me to be the church organist at $25 an hour. I mean, $25, not an hour, $25 a service.
Yeah.
That was it. I thought I was making big money back then, though.
Right.
That was back in 1975.
You never know. I wonder how many people, how many kids, how many students are watching you that you never get a chance to talk to, like the guy you were influenced by, the organist.
There are so many people that mentor us that don't know that they're mentoring us, just by what they do.
Yeah. So it's important how you show up. I mean, you're always a professional, and you're just such a wonderful role model, par excellence. This ministry, I'm just so, because I've seen some great ministries, you know, out in California and then on the East Coast. But this was another level. When I saw this ministry, I said, well, this is another level. So I really appreciate being here. So how did you transition from Gary, Indiana to here?
Graduated from high school in 1978, and I transitioned to college, the University of Louisville.
Okay.
And that's how I ended up down in Kentucky. Okay. And been here ever since. Never went back home since that, because the summers I was playing at churches. So I didn't even have the opportunity to go back home for the summer. So at the age of 18, I pretty much been in Louisville, Kentucky ever since.
Wow. So, you know, as I come in and out the services, and I just happened to think about this story of this last Sunday. I saw you had one of your longtime, I guess, choir members come and sing. Sister was just scat singing, like jazz singers. And you were really in the spirit because you kept egging her on to go take it further. And you put your hand in your pocket. And I said, aha, I know he always has something, not only up his sleeve, but also in his pocket. I hope that we can get the video so our studio audience can see that. That was quite, I never tape anything, but I pulled my phone out when you did that, and I tape you. And thank you. Was that the piece called Thank You?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Jesus.
Thank you, Jesus.
And, you know, some of the most exciting things in worship happen that are spontaneous. And that was just spontaneous. It wasn't planned. Sister Tanita has been a part of our music ministry for years, but she hadn't been here for quite a while, especially since COVID.
Oh,
and was just so excited to see her. She had several surgeries. She's had a knee surgery, hip surgery, and just to see her come out, and she took the little cane, and she still kept on giving her best. And I'm telling you, man, that girl sung that song, and so my little egg in her own was just like saying, hey, you are doing it, sis. Keep on doing it. God is getting the glory out of what you do.
I'm going to tell a little bit of story on the other side of the break, but we're going to take a brief pause for the call. We'll be back with Minister Kevin James.
Did you know that the word alma mater comes from the Latin meaning nurturing mother? One of our primary objectives at Simmons College of Kentucky is to nurture late bloomers. So it doesn't matter if you struggle through high school just to graduate, or even if you earn your GED. We don't look at a student's past, we look at their potential. Simmons College of Kentucky, creating the next generation of thinkers.
We're back here on Black Music Footprints with Kevin James. And I am learning so much about what it takes to be a minister of music, actually. You know, when you think about jazz musicians, to be a jazz musician, you have to learn the repertoire. You know, you probably need about 300, 400, 500 songs that you know. Certainly know the harmony, and go out and play and fellowship with other musicians. And it takes a lot of mastery. And I'm learning, and I've always played in churches and tried to gather. I know somewhat of the repertoire of gospel music, but I'm a neophyte still. But I'm trying to learn. But you must know a lot of songs because I asked one of my colleagues here, you guys did this Psalms 100, and I was like, wow, because it had these elongated vocal things, and it had these moving 8 notes underneath, and it almost sound Bach-ish, Baroque in a sense. It reminded me of that. And I'm saying, when did they have time to learn that one? So, man, that's a part of the repertoire. I mean, that's an old, just things that you know.
Yeah. Yeah, we pulled those songs out. That song, and we always try to stay current. That song came out in the 80s, and back when we first started, we did it years ago, but we had not done it for years. And so the personnel that we have now, say that are singers, and they never heard it before, and so it's to them it's new.
Yeah.
Some of the old schoolers like me, they remember it. They'll say, okay, I remember when so and so recorded that song back, and so I said, yeah, that's it, and we did it. And so we got, man, at St. Stephen Church, we had so many great classics that we've done down through the years. Man, I could have a whole nother year worth of music where we have something new every Sunday from what we did back in the 80s and the early 90s.
And as you're talking, I was thinking about what we witnessed with the St. Stephen Church Choir Music Department collaborating with the Louisville Symphony.
Yeah.
And I attended that concert, of course.
Yeah.
And you did two. You did one here on campus, and you also at the church and on Louisville campus, and you did one at the Performing Arts Center here at Louisville. And it was absolutely incredible.
That was a fun collaboration, and actually we're going to do that collaboration again in February of this year. We're going to have to tweak it probably a little bit. We don't know exactly how COVID is still going to happen, and so we don't know if we'll be able to do full choir like we did the last time. We might have to use the praise team to make it happen, but we're working on it now, and they're excited, and we're excited too.
Well, before the break, I was thinking about back to Thank You, Jesus, with the sister singing with the cane. And I was sitting there, and she was so phenomenal. I was just wondering how many young people now are going to think that they can just walk with a cane and that would help them sing like she sings. I said, because, jazz musicians, we put on our poke pie hats to try to look like Lester Young. Maybe we can sound like that. And we take on, that kind of culture. And she had music written all over her before she even sang the first note, but I was just reflecting on that. But there's a lot of Kevin James out there also that's going to be putting their hands in their pocket when they get ready to really go to the next level.
Man, we do things on stage that we don't really think about. People are really watching what we do. We just kind of in the moment. I was just in the moment, man, and it was just awesome.
Yeah.
This music, this gospel music, this church music, it is so transformational, and it just does something to you while you're in that moment.
Yeah.
There's sometimes it's inexplicable.
Yeah, that's why it's so exciting, because it's really you got the outline. That's what I guess that's what you mean by you lay down the track.
Yeah. And
someone else comes and drive the train. But at that point, it's a lot of ad-lib, a lot of improvisation, a lot of those attributes of what I call African vocality, where you the moans, the groans, and all those things that bring out the spirituality in the music. Yeah. The spiritual invocation, if you will, in our music. And so you have the gospel, you have gospel music, then you have the root of the Negro spirituals, and then you have anthems and hymns. I want to ask you, what would be, if you reflect for a moment, what would be maybe 3 of your favorite hymns, and kind of speak to that?
I'm very traditional, and the church I grew up in, we learned the hymns of the church. We did them in Sunday school. We did them in BTU. We did them in worship. So I like the traditional old school hymns. One of them, Beams of Heaven, one of my favorite hymns. Great is Thy Faithfulness, another one of my favorite hymns. This one has a little gospel flavor, and this is a Thomas Dorsey song, "The Lord Will Make a Way Somehow."
Yes.
Love that.
Wow. Great is that faithfulness, really. I'm sure those hymns resonate with the community and the congregation at large.
Yes.
But very traditional. That's interesting.
Yeah.
St. Stephen, we have here a very traditionalist in that way. Because upholding the hymns of the church is a very important aspect to what you do, isn't it?
Yes, it's very important, and we want to stay current. We always want to, there's a hymn that I like also called "A Charge to Keep I Have" by, I think it was Isaac Watt. But there's a line in that hymn that says, "To serve this present age, my calling to fulfill. May in all my power engage to do my master's will." So we want to serve this present age and staying current. But also we want to serve this present age because we don't want this age to forget where we came from. And so those hymns and those Negro spirituals, those things that brought us to this point, it's very important that the next generation knows what those things are so they can carry it on through the following generations.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons I want to have you here, because that is really the whole essence of my program here. Black music footprints. We walk it in the footsteps of giants.
Yes.
Who have paved the way, and the path is illuminated.
Yeah.
It's an awesome responsibility to do that.
Yes,
because these were giants. Our ancestors were giants.
Yes.
They came. What they had was their musical memory, and they had their imagination. That's all they had.
That's it.
And that's what we do.
Yeah.
I mean, usually there's no music. I don't see your choir members with any sheet music and reading, there's no music there.
No.
The great Art Blakey, who's one of the jazz masters, he used to always say, you don't see us on the bandstand with music. From the creator to the artist to the audience.
Yeah.
He would. That was something he would say after concerts to give people insight that what we're doing is very sacred.
Yes.
And it comes. God is using us.
Yeah.
It comes from the creator. So I'm just excited about what things would look like. Speaking of that, what things would look like, we have holiday seasons coming up. There's always special events. Man, I don't know how you do it. I really don't. You got this every Sunday, and then you have a host of special events that require special music, doesn't it?
Yeah. It takes a lot of planning, but I got a great man. I got the best team in the whole wide world. And so when you put all those people together, now if I was just doing it all by myself, it would be overwhelming. But I have a great team of directors, a great team of musicians, and we all come together and we collaborate. And that collaboration makes it a lot easier when different ones are carrying this part of the weight and somebody else is carrying this part of the weight, somebody else is carrying it. So we're all lifting it up together. It's not a one person just doing it themselves. So
and you trust one another.
And I trust them, man. I trust them. I love these guys and girls. I trust them. I was out of town on last weekend and had no worries because I knew that the team I had was capable of making everything happen, and they did.
And so they just set it on fire.
Yes, sir.
And all you can do is, put out the fire if you need to.
Correct.
Put out the
Correct.
fire.
That act like that Jason Claiborne, that boy is just crazy, man. I mean, but it's just in him.
Yeah.
It's just in him. And all these guys, Elder Spratt, Derek Spratt, and and Brian Bosley, James Davis, all those guys and girls, Erica, they just got it, man. And it's just a part of them, So it's a blessing just to have a team like that you can work with. It's just like it's like a kid in a candy store.
Just wind them up and let them go.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
That is a beautiful place to be.
Yes.
I can only imagine, what you feel like, the feeling that you get from it must be really exciting.
Yes. It takes a lot of work, but it's just so wonderful to be able to do what you love to do.
Yes.
And that's what I can say about this whole team. We love doing it. And that's what makes it so much easier because we love doing it. It's second nature to us to do this.
Yeah, yes.
And also to watch that congregation on Sunday morning and see how they are being blessed by what we do.
Yeah.
That does something for us, man. And it makes us come back to the table Sunday afternoon and Sunday evening and Monday and Tuesday to try to do it all over again for the next week, because we see how it is blessing the congregation.
You're definitely touching the hearts and the minds of our brothers and sisters in this community and beyond, because with the advent of being online and worldwide, and it's, we don't know just how many people we are touching by being a part. I'm just so delighted myself to be a part of this great ministry. Now, I don't know, we're just about out of time, but what I do here at Black Music Footprints is I do a thing that I call the name game, play the name game. And when I ask my guests, I'll throw out a name, and then I like for my guests to reflect on a name or a subject or an event.
Okay.
Reflect upon it and give me your reaction to it, You can expound upon it, but a lot of times it's in 5 words or less. Make you really have to edit and zero in on everything. Let me just say, here's the first word: Negro spiritual.
The foundation of black music in America.
I got to let that seep in because I love that. The hymn.
The theological foundation of music in the church.
I hope somebody's writing this down.
There's so much theology in hymns. If you look at those hymns and read them, there's a lot of theology in the hymns.
Yeah, because I wanted to ask you, in your selection of repertoire, how much of it is the actual the lyric, and how much of it is the melody that you're attracted to?
Ooh, that's a hard one. That's a hard one, because the melody has to do something for you. But I've seen songs that have the melody and they ain't saying nothing. So you got to marry that together.
I've experienced that myself.
Yeah.
When you got the word is so, it penetrates.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Yeah. Here's one: gospel music.
Good news.
He's doing very good. He's doing very well with this. Good news. Wow, I wasn't expecting you to say that, but that is what it is.
When I attended, there was a documentary called "Say Amen Somebody" with Dr. Thomas Dorsey. I happened to be a part of the Louisville Gospel Choral Union, who went to the convention in Houston, Texas, the year that documentary was filmed. I was actually in that Hyatt Regency Hotel when they filmed that.
And when you say approximately what year?
It was like 1980, in the early 80s, 79, 80, somewhere around there. Houston, Texas, the Hyatt Regency downtown. I'll never forget it. And one of the things that Dr. Dorsey said, that the gospel is good news. And in the 30s and the 40s and the 50s, when our parents were going through some of the stuff that they were going through in America, they needed some good news.
Wait a minute, excuse me. Did you say Thomas Dorsey?
Yes.
This is what he was at the convention?
Oh yes, he was the founder of gospel choirs and choruses.
That's right.
Yeah, and that particular convention, he was still living then.
So this really makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
You have been passed down directly, this legacy.
Directly.
So I'm gonna move on and say, well, here's the next word: Thomas Dorsey.
Woo, the father of gospel music.
Oh my goodness! And finally, I'm gonna give you one more: music ministry.
Serving God's people through melody.
Wow. That is something to contemplate, and that is something to really study. I think you have really laid, as you say, you have really laid down the track for many of us to drive the train and take that, and you've illuminated our pathway to a kind of a new artistic expression, standing on the shoulders of musical giants like Thomas Dorsey.
Yes.
And it's just, we're just going to run on and see what the end may be.
Yes.
I want to thank you, Kevin. You have been a dear friend to me since I've been here in Louisville. It's been about 2.5 years now.
Yes.
And so,
And I want to thank you, man, because of what you have brought to this church and what you've brought to this area and to this community, man. You are a blessing to all of us. Thank you so much for having me on. It's been a great time, man, sharing with you.
it's been a wonderful time. So thank you. This is SAC Live TV, where truth, justice, and power always prevail. My name is Mondre Moffett.